Hello, my friends. I am really hoping you can hear me and that I still have power and internet through the length of this wonderful zap chat, as I call it. Because everything is energy, right? And part of my program, well, a huge part of my program is about the 5 pillars of peace. And tonight we're going to be talking about one of them, the relational pillar. Sorry. The relational pillar is all about how we interact with others and what that does for our energy. So, our relationships are incredible opportunities to be able to grow and learn and become wiser and heal a lot of childhood trauma, or even just maybe some things that we learned in our childhood that maybe isn't serving us so well anymore. um, So, I wanted to briefly touch on all of the 5 pillars so you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about when I talk about the 5 pillars of peace. When you have these pillars in alignment, then the natural result is peace. And the first pillar is the physical pillar, and that, of course, is about the food you put in, that you feed yourself, and the way that you move your body. And that is what I call the primal energy source. So that is rooted in the root chakra, and that connects us to earth and connects us to, that primal force. The next pillar is the mental. It's the thoughts that you feed yourself. And I call that the ethereal or the intellectual energy source. And through the mental is one of the ways that I access other realms of being, or journeying work through shamanism and that kind of thing. And then the third pillar is the one we're going to be talking about tonight, the relational. It's the way you interact with others. It's the way that your energy and others will bounce off one another. And of course, I call that the integral energy source. And then we have the environmental, and that includes the places and the people in your life, and their energy and all of that stuff around you that can affect your energy. And I call that the elemental energy source. Then we come to the spiritual, which is what you do to please protect yourself and to give yourself those moments of peace and strength. And I call that the regenerative energy source. So I don't know if anybody's here, but because I'm not seeing any comments or anything, but anyone can catch it on the replay. If you catch it on the replay, please put in the comments #replay, and that way I know that you're watching, and that would be amazing. So I will start by kind of talking about when I had my first really big aha moment when it comes to terms of relationship, and how and what it means to be in relationship with others. And I'm not talking about, like just lovey-dovey relationships. I'm talking about everything. And I mean our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with plants, our relationship with trees, our, just all of that kind of stuff. Although that kind of goes more into the elemental, but bear with me. So when I was, gosh, going to date myself here. It was in the 90s, and I picked up a book called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. And It's a fun little adventure story that also tells a tale of spirituality. I don't know if any of you in my group have ever heard of it, but it's not like this tremendous work of art, but it's fun and it really gets some ideas across, which is, I think, the whole point of the whole thing. The thing that struck me the most was he talks about there being control dramas, right? And control dramas are how we have come. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So, control dramas become, they are birthed out of our need for energy. Okay, every interaction that we have with another human being is an attempt to take energy, and not necessarily in a bad way, but it's what it is. Especially when you come into the realm of arguments, you're looking at, you are trying to deplete your opponent of their energy and their will to fight, right? And it's a spiritual psychic drama that everybody engages in every single day. And so the he broke it down into there being four basic control dramas that we fit ourselves into. Okay. The first is the intimidator, which, as you might imagine, is someone who's very aggressive and very, you know, forceful in the way that they talk or the way that they act, and especially in an argument. You have the interrogator, that person who, when, who questions you to death, asks you every little question. I mean, like, is really in your business. And, like, if you ask them a question, they'll respond with a question. They're not very straightforward. They really get on your nerves, right? Then you have the aloof. And the aloof gets energy by basically turning their back and forcing others to come to them. And then you have the poor me. And that, of course, we all know someone like that. That's the one that's always got something going on, always the victim. And they create this drama around them so that they can get attention, aka energy. Because where your attention goes, energy flows, right? The interesting thing the thing that really hit me is, like, I could identify, like, so many of the people around me as fitting primarily into one of these categories. Of course, we all kind of flow back and forth into different roles depending on the situation, but everyone has a primary, and I've gone back and forth between the aloof and the poor me a lot in my life. But he said something that really spurred my inner questioning. And it was like, the intimidator will create a poor me. A poor me will create an intimidator. And when you think about that dynamic, you see this person who's really, really aggressive all the time. And so the only way someone can react to that is to be, I'm sorry, I'm just, and being the victim, right? And conversely, if your mother was a poor me, then you would, to get them to snap out of being all about them and them being a victim, you would have to be more aggressive. You would have to assert yourself more. And then you have the dynamic between the interrogator and the aloof. An interrogator creates an aloof, and aloof creates an interrogator. And again, that dynamic makes a lot of sense too, because if you have someone that's always nagging you, then you automatically are like, oh, I'm done. If you want my attention, you're going to have to come to me in a different way, because I'm not. And then if you're really aloof, that causes other people to, again, come to you and maybe nag you and ask and be asking what your business is all the time, right? So, in this whole dynamic of these control dramas, it's neat and interesting to find out, oh, yeah, okay, I can recognize that part in me and that part in me and that part in me. Or that's my mom, that's my dad, that's my sisters, that's whatever, you know. But these are called ego traps. And what they do essentially is they shut you down from being able to truly process your emotions and truly process the wounds that you have sustained from early childhood, past lives, ancestors, whatever it is. These are ways of your ego saying, I'll protect you, I got you, right? So it's lovely and it's beautiful and it's part of your growth to be able to become aware of these ego traps and take a look at yourself and be like, wow, okay. And this is where, I don't know if you've heard the term before, but this is where nonviolent communication comes in. And nonviolent communication is a way of communicating with somebody in which the blame game is done, right? You take full responsibility for your emotions. You know, like my motto in life is always, you know, own your shit and do something about it, right? So it's not just, okay, I acknowledge that I'm this, but I'm going to keep acting the same way. It's acknowledge it, own it, and then do something to make yourself happier, not just about, you know, other people. So if you watch this, what I would like you to do is start to think about, what are your ego traps? How do you respond to certain stimuli in your relationships? If you get triggered by somebody, try to find that awareness and like, woo, I am really triggered right now. And then just be like, okay, that means something's up. That means I am working on something. They have touched, you know, that sore nerve that has been alive and awake since whenever. And that is a really awesome opportunity to be able to learn more about yourself, even find a deeper level of acceptance for yourself, right? You can say, oh wow, this is where the hurt comes from. Okay, when you do that, I feel threatened, I feel alone, I feel unseen, I feel, you know, being overridden, whatever the case may be. And then you have that opportunity to be like, okay, but why do I feel that way when all they did was state their truth, or maybe they said something hurtful, like even on purpose, because there's that crazy dynamic in relationships, right? So there's that opportunity to really do some inner work. And as I like, you know, I love doing shadow work. It's some of the most rewarding and fulfilling healing that I've ever done is when I really deep dive into the stuff that I have pushed down or has hidden from me for the majority of my life, if not my whole life. So yeah, take a moment whenever you're thinking about your relationships and see where you fit in. If you're interested in getting the book, they have it on Audible, you know, Celestine Prophecy. They have it on Audible, and I think the paperback version is like $13. I mean, it is an older book. It's from the 90s, but I think it's a lot of fun and it's worth exploring. And I believe there were some two other books and like experiential manual and stuff too, if you really get into it. And Having said that, there is also one other concept I wanted to introduce to you about relationships. And oh, hey, Bree, yay, you're here. I've just been doing like what I did in Twitch when I first started, and I just talked to myself for like however long. um, but I was just getting into the work of Dr. Harville Hendricks, who coined imagotherapy. And in brief, the oh no, you're okay, you're okay, yeah. No, I'm so used to that from when I in my Twitch days that it's like no big deal. I don't mind talking to myself. I'm really good company. No. um, but I'm glad you can hear me. Blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, Dr. Harville Hendricks, imagotherapy. So imagotherapy, in short, is this idea. Imago, of course, is Greek for image or mirror, right? So according to Dr. Hendricks, and I believe it's his wife that he co-wrote it with, so it's pretty phenomenal in that way. But the basic concept here is that when we're children, we encounter like these little traumas, right? And it can be little traumas, it can be big traumas, whatever the fact. I mean, you can have a trauma created because like your mom had a bad day, and you're sitting there as a 1-year-old banging pots on the kitchen floor, and she just turns to you and screams at you to stop, and you're like, whoa. So that could be like a little minor trauma, and that's just a moment when you feel unsafe, right? Like all of a sudden this person who is your god is aggressive towards you, and so now suddenly your world is unsafe, right? So that's a trauma, and it can be, of course, bigger traumas, whatever. So at any rate, the idea behind imago therapy is that we are exactly big T and little t trauma, yeah, because it definitely runs the gamut, the whole spectrum. And of course, it's perspective, right? So, like, I remember being a kid and being so traumatized because my parents just kind of like brushed me off when I was asking them a question that I really, really wanted to know the answer to, but they had no idea what I was talking about. They were like, "What? Just and I was like, and I remember it to this day. Like I was always a really curious kid anyway, and I was asking why about everything, so I don't blame them for getting sick of me. But so the idea is that as we grow up, when okay, let me back up. When we're children, we don't have the coping mechanisms. We don't have the way to process the traumas and whatever happens to us. So as we grow up and go out into the world to look for our mate, we're like, ding, that zing that people talk about. More often than not, it's an imago, which means that person is a mirror for you, for someone who was your caretaker as a child. People disagree with me, and I'm just saying this is Dr. Harville Hendricks' idea. I tend to relate. At your middle son, he asked all the yeah. and I love those guys. They're like I want to know everything. And sometimes you're like, I don't know what you're asking, because it's all like in baby speak and stuff like that. But so as you grow up and you meet somebody that you're super attracted to, like almost instantly, there's that energy there that person is very similar to one of your caregivers growing up. And our subconscious mind has been floating along. Yeah, exactly. Our subconscious mind is floating along going, la, 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 la. Oh, now I can heal. Look, there it is again. Now I have a chance to heal. The problem is that most people are not aware of this even being a thing that they're attracted to somebody else because and to be honest, a lot of people be like, that's not like my mom, no. No, no. But a lot of ways, this is what we're attracted to. And so I posted a video like a little while ago, and it talks about the three stages of relationship. And of course, you have the honeymoon phase where everything is glorious and you're kind of not really opening up and being truly honest about who you are. You're only letting out the stuff that is like socially acceptable about yourself, and it's all glorious and beautiful, and you're having lots of sex, and you're having lots of fun, and all that kind of stuff. And then you hit stage two, and that's when you feel comfortable enough, aka you've made some kind of commitment to each other, and you start letting your hair down. You start, not shaving your armpits. I don't know. but but then you start triggering each other and opening each other's old wounds and stuff like that. And it's a very, very hard time to go through. Can you relate to that, Bree, in any way? Sorry, I was really thirsty. I don't know if there's a delay but anyway. Um, so, so you get to that point, and then if you can become aware the reasons why these stacking triggers. Yes, indeed. Good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, these stacking triggers and reactions that then trigger the other person and cause them to have reactions that triggers the other person. It's like in the video I shared, they calls it the loop of doom, which I think is funny and totally accurate. And the cool thing is you have a choice, and you can like just buy, or if you're aware of what's causing the triggers, or if you become aware of what's causing the triggers, and you mutually decide that that is something that you can do together, like to heal each other's wounds. I mean, those make some of the best relationships ever, because you just open right out, right? And that's when you become a spiritual partner. And becoming a spiritual partner means you find ways to cope and teach each other how to heal and how to cope and how to process, and the conflict is still there occasionally and all that kind of stuff, but it becomes this beautiful merging between two people. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, it can be besties, it can be, whatever. But I love his work. We're kind of thing now, 11.5 years into our relationship. Yeah. Yeah, so you're in like the spiritual part, or are you still struggling in the stage two? Because stage two can last a really long time. That's still cool though. I never made it to more than 10 years in my relationships. Which is why I decided to work on myself before I decided to get into any romantic relationships going forward. But yeah, so those are two concepts. If you're interested, I'll put links for both books in the comments when I do the replay. And because I highly recommend both of them to get kind of like the spiritual and the psychological process, and put together. More the communication phase and really accepting triggers working. Yes, good, good, yay. That's a really, I call it fun place to be. um, I've been in the position of being willing to be in that place myself, but my partner wasn't, because they were just not I don't know what to call it. Trying to be nice. um, they just weren't willing to advance, their skills in relationships. So, um, what else? Ah, yes. So, and we're coming up on the 25-minute mark. I can't believe I made it. Yeah, so those two items that gives you the spiritual look at different. Oh, yeah, he was an asshole. He was a narcissistic asshole. Yeah. Um, Definitely. So part of the reason I've had to process a lot of things over the last 10 years to be able to get to the point where I can be in a good place and be the coach that I'm meant to be. So in a lot of ways, I thank and don't thank him, but I learned a lot from him, and that's the most important part, of any relationship, even if there's like a really like horrible breakup or whatever, which ours wasn't. Ours was, I mean, there was a lot of hurt feelings and betrayal, blah blah blah. But it wasn't the case where we were like screaming at each other and at each other's throats, because we were at least advanced enough, because he had gone to nonviolent communication stuff with me and all that kind of stuff. We were we are where we are from the lessons we went through. Yeah, for real. Absolutely. 100%. That's why I learned, like, I don't know, several years ago, that having regrets is kind of ridiculous, because sure, like if you're in a place where you don't really want to be at the moment, you're still learning, and that if you focus yourself, focus your energy, you can just push through and be better because of the shit that you're going through. And that's, Nietzsche had it, man. That which does not kill me makes me stronger. Nietzsche was the bomb. I know people think he's kind of harsh, but I like him. Anyway. So yeah, these two spiritual and psychological concepts feed into your integral energy source. So especially when you're talking about the Celestine prophecy stuff, where there's that tug of energy back and forth. Whenever we relate to somebody, it's an exchange of energy. There's no exchange. There's no interaction with anybody else where there's not an energy exchange, even if it's across vast distances. Like Bree, you're 2,000 miles away from me or whatever, and well, maybe not that far, but anyway, we're still exchanging energy. And like when we do meditations and stuff, I can feel your energy so strongly. And so that's when we start to be mindful of, okay, so when I interact with this person, do I feel high vibe or do I feel low vibe? When I interact with this person, same question. And you start to, very connected, yes. You start to kind of naturally either wean yourself off of characters in your life that are not so great for your energy stores, or you find ways to heal with those people and raise the vibration if the vibration is low. And there's so many techniques. Oh my god! When I was at Institute for Integrative Nutrition, not only did we study like 200 dietary theories, but it was like I don't even know how many relationship theories. It was crazy. But there's a voice for everybody, so that's why we have to learn all that. Thank you. So yeah, I'm at my 30 minutes. So thank you so much for coming, Bree. And did you have any questions or anything you wanted to say in addition to what I was talking about? Yes, weaning yourself off or raising together. It's really, those are the only options. When you think about protecting, and that's where the spiritual pillar culminates, is when you're protecting and building your own regenerative can't talk. Your regenerative energy sources. But yeah, your people in your life are a huge part of all of that, and so yeah, it's all a process, and it's really beautiful once you start becoming aware of. Not need to. Oh, thank you so much. Love you. So since you don't have anything more, I will go ahead and close for the night. I'll probably be doing a random live later this week because I want to do maybe I'll record it, maybe a live, I don't know, where I want to do a relationship based meditation, a guided meditation, and because a lot of people, again, timely, we got the societal holiday of Valentine's Day, which I do not celebrate because it's just weird. But but a lot of people do, and there's a lot of focus on relationships, and of course, I celebrate the spring equinox and aka and Imbolc and all that kind of good stuff, which also has a lot to do with that whole vibe of energy and fertility and vitality and mating and God, I'm a nerd. Anyway, all right. I love you, and thank you so much for coming. And again, if anybody else watches this on replay, please put in the comments #replay so that I know that you've been watching. And yeah, thanks for coming, and have a lovely night. Bye, 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 bye. Nerds rock. We do. Bye bye.